In Matthew chapter 6, reading verses 1 through 21. Another lengthy passage. This is the last message on the Sermon on the Mount that we'll have for a while. I hope it's been a little bit enlightening for you, and I hope that you've gone back and looked at some of these words from Matthew chapter 5 and 6. They're very strong and challenging words for us as we seek to follow Jesus and be the disciples that he wants us to be. Chapter 6, Jesus moves into, again, some practical words of how it is that we live out a life of what I would call, or what a lot of people call, spiritual disciplines. There's many spiritual disciplines, but Jesus kind of lifts up three of them here. And he says this: "Be careful not to do your acts of righteousness in front of others, to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So, when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets, to be honored by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing on in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask. This then is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For if you forgive others when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive yours. When you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others they are fasting. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Amen. It's a good word for us today. And I titled my message today, "Disciplines for the Journey," because a lot of times if you do any reading in Christian circles or in any kind of spiritual readings, a lot of times the metaphor of a journey or a trip is used in regards to our relationship with Christ. Ken, you can go to that next slide. And so, so the whole idea, not quite that far, but that's okay. So the whole idea of a journey in regards to following Jesus is really important, I think, and it's a good way for us to think about how it is that we follow Christ. And as I was thinking about a journey and what we need for a journey, I was thinking back a year ago at at this time. I was preparing for a journey. Hard to believe that it's already been a year, but Lisa and I and our friend Jody went to France, remember, in April, right after Easter last year. And here it is, mid-February already. We're almost moving into Lent. And I was thinking about that, and I thought, God, it's a year already since we went to France. But, you know, in preparation for that journey, or some of you maybe go on camping trips, or you have trips planned. Some of you maybe go south for a few weeks, or whatever you do. You know, we make preparations for that journey. And for that trip to France, you know, I ended up, Lisa and I bought some new clothes. I bought some new shoes, you know, because we were going to be doing a lot of walking. There were opportunities to, or there were things we needed to get just for suitcases and travel kinds of things when you're doing the international thing. We actually got a new credit card to prepare for the journey, because certain credit cards charge money when you make the exchange. You know, they'll charge you extra money, and so you got to make sure you have a credit card when you get cash that doesn't charge you. Those things are available if you do international travel and you didn't know that. I mean, you got to do that. Plus, the credit card we got was 50,000 miles extra, and so, you know, that paid for one of our trips. So that was really a good deal. Okay, so there are ways you can work the system. You know, that's kind of preparing for travel. And we do all these things. Why do we do these things? Why do we do these things to prepare when we take a trip? Why do we do that? Oh, not a rhetorical question. Why do we prepare ourselves like
There's
that?
no frustration when you get there.
Okay, so there's no frustration when you get there. Why else?
Safety?
Safety reasons. Okay, so, you know, actually a good thing to do when you travel internationally is check on the, the Homeland Security site or somewhere, and they have, actually it used to be the CIA, I think they have these dossiers on various countries, you know, and they tell you what to look for and what not to look for, and, you know, or to not go there at all. And yeah, for safety, what else? Why else do we prepare for a journey like that?
Make sure your journey is successful.
To make sure it's successful, sure. To make sure that everything that happens on that journey is what you want it to be, you know, so that it's going to be a good trip. So you come back and you have lots of good stories. Any other thoughts?
It's part of the joy.
It's part of the, well, for some people it is. That's a personality thing. Yeah, it's part of the joy. You know, it's part of the trip, actually, isn't it? That, you know, our preparations and planning are part of the trip itself. That's the way I feel. Some people hate it, I know. Okay? So there's a lot of reasons why we do that. The same is true spiritually. You see, I mean, we ultimately have a goal of going to heaven, right? And we want to go to heaven. And so, in order to get to heaven, one of the things that we need to do is prepare ourselves for this journey. And in fact, we're already on the journey. And so there are things that we can do that will enhance the journey, make it a better trip, make it a safer trip, make it a more godly trip. When we do these things. And that's what Jesus is listing here in the text that I read today. And so if you go to that next slide, Ken, there's three things that Jesus lifts up. And he's very clear about this. He introduces it by saying, do not let your acts of righteousness, or do not do your acts of righteousness in front of others, or there will be no reward in heaven. By the way, this whole sermon today should be 4 or 5 messages. I'm just telling you. I didn't think you'd want to be here till 2 o'clock. So trying to condense it all down. And we can do that because it's a good section and there's themes here. But, you know, Jesus introduces this again. Let's read that top verse together. Do not do your acts of righteousness in front of others, or there will be no reward in heaven. Key verse there. Okay, so he begins by saying when, next slide, Ken, when you give to the needy, I reverse these, when you give to the needy, do it in secret, don't announce your giving with trumpets, as the hypocrites do. Okay, if you can imagine that, right? The scribes and the Pharisees, you know all about them. Jesus was always in conflict with them. And so when one of them had a nice gift to bring, or they were giving to somebody else, I mean, they very well might have announced it on a street corner with trumpets. They might have very well told everybody that they knew and even people that they didn't know, look at me, look at this great gift. Look at how I have gone to the prison and helped this person. Look at how I have helped this homeless person. Look at how I have brought food to this person. Does that seem really weird to you? Yes? I mean, I hope none of you would even think of doing it. But I think it was pretty common practice. And maybe we know some people that do take pride in when they help out others. And they want to make sure, hopefully it's not one of you, they want to make sure that others know. You know, in a way, we kind of do this with the church. And I don't know how this works out exactly, but you know, when we take 500 pounds of food from our garden over to neighbors, we want to celebrate that, and we share that with each other, don't we? You know, and there's that celebration part there. Or when we help somebody, you know, that's in need, we might want to share that, but that's, for me, that's just kind of family type stuff. You know, if there was, I don't think they do it anymore, but there was a particular Christian group, Christian church that used to publish what people gave to the church on an annual basis. So the information that is privy to basically our finance team, you know, as to how much people gave in the church, we expect that to be private, don't we? But there was a time when that information in certain denominations was published every year. So everybody knew how much everybody else was giving. The main problem with that is not so much that everybody knows. The main problem with that is that the people who give a lot feel really prideful. And the people that give little feel really ashamed. That's the problem, right? And Jesus says, don't be like that. Don't be so full of pride about your giving that people have to know. Don't do that. You've received your reward if that's what you're looking for. He says, rather, when you give to the needy, do it in secret. Don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. This is a hard practice, actually. I mean, even within the church, it's a hard practice because we do want to share. We do want people to know. But I would suggest that we try to practice this. That you try to practice it. You know, when I was in seminary, I mean, one of the best gifts I've ever received was when I was in seminary. Lisa and I were married. We had 2 young children, and we were, I think I've told you before, I don't think I've told you this particular story, but we were pretty poor. And one, you know, I mean, we were poor to the point where we didn't always know where our next meal was coming from. I mean, other than macaroni and cheese and hot dogs. I mean, it was that kind of poor, you know. And one day, you know, I mean, it's like we were just living on faith, and I went to the post office, the student post office, and got an envelope. You know, there's an envelope in my mailbox, and it was unsigned, unmarked, not addressed or anything. And, you know, I opened it up, and there was $100. You know, nobody taking credit for it. Had no idea where it came from, who gave it, not one idea at all. And went home and showed it to Lisa, and we had groceries for a week. Right? And it was just a great gift. And there was no thanks to be given because who knows who it was from. Those kinds of anonymous gifts are such a blessing to the people that receive them. If you've ever been on the receiving end of an anonymous gift, it's just like, wow, somebody has thought about me and my situation that I mean, usually it's going to be something like that. It's going to be from somebody you know. Somebody thought about me and my situation, and I was the recipient of their generosity. And you know what else that does? When we give to the needy in secret, you know what else that does when we're aware of that? Somewhere along the line, It's going to come back to us. And that's why I think why Jesus says your reward is in heaven. When you give to the needy in secret, your reward is in heaven. It's going to come back to us. Way more than we even understand it. Okay? So when you give to the needy, give in secret. The second thing that Jesus talks about is when you pray. When you pray, go to your closet. Don't parade around on the street corners. Now, that was my word. It's not Jesus' word, but it's kind of like that. Again, he says, don't be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on street corners to be seen by others. When you pray, go to your closet. Again, I think there are some Christians who really enjoy the spotlight and really enjoy being out there in front of people and really enjoy being ostentatious and letting everybody know who they are and what they're about and why they're there. And what a lot of people tend to think is that, well, that person is so spiritual. Look at all that they do and all that they have and all that they say, and they've got it together so much. And, Jesus says when you're doing that, when you're parading around your faith, when you're parading around your relationship with God, when you're making sure that everybody knows, not just prayer, but how spiritual you are, that's your reward. But when you pray, go to your closet. When you pray, it's just between you and God. Don't worry about what other people are thinking. You see. Unfortunately, we have good examples for the don'ts in the Christian community. And Jesus just is very clear. Don't do that. Don't be those kinds of people. Those people, he has harsh words for them, doesn't he? He calls them hypocrites.